Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 3P Podcast. I'm your host, J.Nellie Turner, and on today's episode, we have a very, very special guest for you guys. So, I know him as J.Nellie. Some of my teammates know him as the mad scientist, but I'll let him introduce himself to you guys.
Yeah, thank you for that, Darnell. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
For sure.
Yeah, awesome. But yeah, no, a lot of people call me Coach J.Nellie. But for the past year, I've got into coaching with Victory Multisport, and Darnell here is one of my athletes that I've been coaching. Actually, just wrapping up some mad scientist doing some VO2 testing with him today. So that went really well. So it's cool information we'll get out of that to kind of help the training and everything. But no, besides that, I've been coaching for about a year and a half now, and certified in triathlon. But basically for about 12, 15 years prior to this, I was out there, racing Ironman triathlons, probably 10 Ironmans altogether, 30 plus 70.3s. And then I can't even count how many Olympic and sprints I've done. But yeah, just a lot of experience, and just really love giving back now to the triathlete community.
Take me to that first race. I know we spoke about it off camera a little bit earlier, but take me to that first race. First of all, what got you? What was the spark to get you into endurance sports?
So really, how I ended up getting into endurance sports and triathlon was when I first job I ever took right out of college at 84 Lumber. My life kind of shifted. It was from, college life, whether it was recreationally playing basketball or just kind of being a lot more active, to now I have a 9-to-5 job. Mm-hmm. And before that, I used to work probably four other jobs, previously to that. So now I'm into this new 9-to-5 job type career, and no goals, no sports, no teams that I'm playing for. So it really was just go to work, come home, and do nothing. And so kind of got into this habit. And eventually, 84 Lumber had a gym, so I joined the gym, figured I'd try to start lifting some weights or something, get back into that. But really no focus, no goal or anything like that. And here, one of the gym guys, Pete Valentino, which ends up being one of my good friends, he started to coach. He was like, hey, why don't you do triathlon up in Erie? And he was one of the trainers up there for 84. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'm like, I'm not really a runner. I couldn't run a mile on the treadmill. Wow. So, eventually I got up to where I could, do 3 miles, because the sprint triathlon is, 500-meter swim, so not a long swim at all. And 12-mile bike, and then it was a 3-mile run. So I was like, okay, I could do this. So I go up there, and it's up Presque Isle, so up at Erie up there. So it was just a really nice place for a triathlon. It was off the beach into the lake, and yeah, when I got there, just the community of athletes and just the kind of the hype of it all and the excitement was just, that's kind of what got me in. It was that adrenaline rush. And I was like, oh wow, this is going to be so cool. I was like, and then what made it even better was there was a thunderstorm. So they actually had to delay the race some. And so Erie, I didn't realize it was a lake, and I'm thinking, oh man, but it felt like an ocean with the way the waves were and stuff. So yeah, when I went out and did it, I wasn't that great of a swimmer. I swim at a lake. We had a cabin in a lake, so I spent a lot of my summers and stuff at my grandfather's cabin in the lake swimming and stuff. So I had some, I knew how to swim, but not like swim like we do today, actively swim. Right. And the cool thing is when we went out there, and actually my brother Ryan did it as well, and he came from the background of bodybuilding. But he came up, and we both did the race together, and we have 10 years difference on us. Wow. So he was, he came out and did it, and we both went out there, and with the way the waves were and everything, we both froze. He actually had a panic attack and went back on the beach, wow, collected himself, came back out and finished it. Yeah. I kind of just, doggy paddled, breaststroke, did whatever I could, get through it. Yeah. But it was just, it was crazy. And then after that, got onto the bike and run and finished it. But it was just, getting through that it was epic. It was just a great time. A lot of people like willing to help you out. And it was just a great atmosphere. And so I just ended up getting just sucked into that triathlon world and been doing it ever since. Still doing it.
Wow, like I've had a similar story. Like one of the guys. So during the pandemic, I went to a bike shop and of course you're browsing and stuff, and there was a guy that was behind the desk and he was trying to sell me a bike, but he was more on so excited about triathlon. And that excitement that he had made me want to get into it. So that's how I started my at least my interest in it. So it's always interesting when I hear someone else say, like, it's usually the community that gathers you up. Because if you ever met someone who did a triathlon or is interested in it, it's like they have this energy that makes you be like, I want that. I want that energy. So okay, so take me to your first. What was it? Your first race, your first triathlon. No, your first triathlon was a sprint. Your second one.
Well, yeah. So I think what you're talking about, the 70.3, the first 70.3.
Okay. Yes.
So I did do like that sprint that year. And then the following year I did an Olympic distance and then a sprint. And then the following year, that's when I got signed up for my first half Ironman.
Okay.
So, before that, I kind of once I got sucked into this triathlon world, right? So, my brain goes, and the way I am is I want to learn everything I can about the sport. And back then, there wasn't a lot. I mean, there was only like maybe 12 races that Ironman actually had in the continental U.S.
Oh, wow.
So there just wasn't a lot there, or stores or different things on it. So it was getting the triathlon magazines, reading that type of stuff, anything I could get my hands on. And I watched some of the YouTube videos of like the Ironman World Championship, stuff like that. And so that was just sucking me in big time. And so I had my dream set on doing an Ironman one day because it was so epic. It was like, wow, if you could do this, you could do anything. So it was kind of that mentality that I wanted to get to that point. And so for me to do that, logically it made sense, right? 70.3 next step. So I had two 70.3s lined up for that year. It was going to be my first. And then so that winter, I get my bike. That was good. Also, too, it was also 2008 during the housing crisis. Oh, wow. So 84 Lumber, we have a huge company that's invested in houses. They ended up cutting half of their workforce. So I ended up getting let go from 84, right as I was already signed up for the 70.3 White Lake, North Carolina. Wow. And so it was a really weird time for me because it was like the first time I felt like I actually failed at something in life. And so that was like one of my greatest fears. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to how I was going to bounce back out of there. So that's really where I started to kind of mentally, just train. I had the time to train. I'm looking for a job, and it was all about just putting the work in, training. If I could do this, I could do anything type mentality. And so, 6 months is going by, and I'm still interviewing. I have perspective with the company I'm with now, ATI. And so I go to do the race. And so when I go to do the race, it was pretty epic. I was excited for it. I was looking forward to it. There was a lot of good things happening. I had a potential job offer from ATI at that time, so everything was kind of coming together. But when I did the race, it was a hot race, and I was still somewhat of a rookie. I didn't have the knowledge base that I do now. And I'll explain a little example of that here, just with sunscreen, how important sunscreen is part of it. Because we're down in North Carolina, it's it's May and it's sunny and it's hot. It was a 95-degree day out there, so the swim went fine. I did fine in the swim, no issues there. And I get on the bike, and biking's one of my strong suits. And I love the bike because you get to go fast, and you really get to hammer on the bike. And you get to look cool doing it because who doesn't love a really sexy looking bike? So,
right, exactly.
That was my favorite sport. So I was hammering along on the bike, and it's a flat course. It wasn't too windy, so I was able to really fly on my first one, and I was excited. I was passing people up, and the adrenaline's going. Right. I'm just loving it. Well, here around mile 40, I started to cramp up a little bit. And I was getting a little worried, but I ended up starting to get these real sharp cramps in my quad. That actually, I got off the bike a couple times, started to stretch, and then I would go again, and like within a mile, it would happen again. And it was bad enough to where it felt like a knife was in my muscle. I actually thought I was gonna like tear my muscle or like somehow break something. So it was just excruciating pain. Well, the last time that it happened was like around mile 43.
Okay.
And I get off. And I've stopped probably 4 times just to try to stretch this muscle out. And so time's getting away from me. And here, now I'm starting to be more towards like last place. And the cart comes around for, to sweep everyone off the course. And the guy's like, "How you doing? You doing all right?" And I'm like, "I just got this pain, just trying to stretch it out." And he's like, "Hey, if you don't get going, we're gonna have to pull you off the course. You're not gonna make the cutoff." And I'm like, it's just, I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there mentally trying to think about, wow, is this possible? I'm not gonna make this, So there's a lot of things that have kind of gone wrong or haven't gone good. I'm trying to, I came off 6 months layoff, potential job offer. A lot of this stuff's racing through my mind. I put all this time into training. I think back to the time I just lost my job, the failure, and that's what's going through my mind is that me? Am I a failure? And so that was just hard for me to kind of deal with, deal with there. And I'm dealing with all this emotion out on that race course. And, I'm looking back at not only my failures at work, is it to myself? Is it to my wife? Is it to my family? I talked about, I'm going to do the 70.3. I had aspirations of doing an Ironman. I already signed up for another 70.3 2 months from now. Right. And I'm sitting there on the course as I'm trying to stretch out. And it's like, I can't fail. And so I get on the bike again and I go and I'm praying that, oh God, hopefully this doesn't, I stretch this out enough and I could go. And sure enough, a mile, 2 miles later, it comes back, that pain. And through that moment, I'm sitting there just tearing up. And I'm like, man, what do I do here? If I quit, I'm done. This is over. Right. So I made my decision. I put too much time into this. I have to do this. I have to see this through. And so I was like, you know what? If I break my leg, whatever, this stabbing pain feels like I'm going to tear a muscle or something. I was like, let's just do it. So I did. And it hurt like hell. I went for it and it was painful. And honestly, for about 2 miles, it hurt so bad. The pain was sharp. But after that, it did settle. I calmed myself. I tried to breathe through it the best I could, right? And I made it to the finish line. Barely made the cutoff. I think I had like maybe less than a couple minutes, but I made it. And so it was just this huge surge of just how good I felt. Yeah. Even though I didn't realize I still had 13.1 miles to run. After that. But the energy that I had, the excitement that I had, the fact that I was able to do that and push through that pain was just, it was just amazing, that feeling that I had. And yeah, it got me to there. And I mean, I finished the run. The run was it was kind of more of a fast walk and a couple sprints in between, but I was able to finish that with sun poisoning though, because that's the other point, being out on the course.
This is one of the interesting things that I've learned as well during endurance sports. So I call it the moment you meet yourself, right? So I feel like when you're running, you're doing your 5Ks and your 10, whatever, and it's always good and it's always hard. But when you're in a race and I can give up or I can keep going, I always find when I'm talking to people about endurance sports, it's like that's the moment where I always look forward to. Right, and of course, with you being my coach, that mile for me is the mile 18, because that's usually when I hit that point where it's like, okay, either I'm gonna keep going or I'm gonna stop, and I think that's where you hit your first race or your first 70.3 that you said is you hit that moment where it was like this cramp hurts so bad, but that's when you meet the decision maker in yourself. That's when you meet the guy that's gonna like. Either it's do or die. So speak to that. Like when you get to those situations, how did that transfer over into your personal life?
So yeah, and that's actually something I've carried with me, and that's why that particular race and that memory of that race has always stayed with me. Because before my life, I would always question, am I good enough? Could I do that job? Even with ATI, I took the job with ATI because I needed a job. I needed to have an income. I thought I was going to fail at that job. Because I didn't have the skill set for it. I luckily enough was able to get that, whether I kind of talked my way into it, but I definitely was fearful that I was going to fail right off, especially after I came off another job that wasn't necessarily a failure in a sense that, economical situations put me there. But that's how I've lived my life, even before that. In college, I always wanted to be the other person. I always wanted to be my best friend who got good grades. Things came to me easy. I always had to struggle for things. Always had to work hard to try to get there. And even at that, it was always hard to do. And so mentally, whenever I made that decision on that course that day, that changed something in me. And that kind of gave me the understanding and the belief that I could do anything that I want to do. Right. And I feel that with everybody. Everyone has that potential to do whatever they want to do if they're willing to make the decision in their mind to do the work, to push through the pain, go through the obstacles, and just never quit. And that is probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from that 70.3 race. It changed probably my life after that.
Wow.
And yeah, and that's one big reason why I really love this sport. Because after that, my mentality of even when I think about doing an Ironman, it wasn't can I do it. My attitude changed that I will do it because I know I can do it.
Right.
So that was probably the big lesson that I learned off of that.
Yeah. No, and that's something that I experienced as well. And hearing it coming from someone who's so seasoned in it, and me just kind of being a beginner, I haven't even really officially done my first, Ironman. So it's I'm already experienced some of those beginner things, like you said, when you're meeting yourself and you're okay, this is the decision. I'm gonna keep going and things like that. Which brings me to another point, right? So I was in the gym. And there was a guy, he was about 80. He had to be about 85, maybe 90. But he was older. He was an older guy. And he seen I had a Pittsburgh marathon shirt on, and he said, he stopped me. And he said it just like this. He said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Have you done a Pittsburgh marathon?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Why?" And it was almost to be he was like I was being a masochist. I'm putting myself through pain, and I was and he thought I was crazy, but I thought he was crazy. Because I was like, man, you're 85 and what kind of adversity did you put yourself through? So speak to that. How many, and I know you've probably had it a lot, but how many people do you have coming up to you being like, well, how are you doing this?
Oh, I've gotten that from day one when I first when I first started. People didn't even know what triathlon was at that time. And whether it was people at work, whether it was people at the gym, family, it's why do you put yourself through this type of stress? Why do you, why would you, when I sit there and tell somebody I'm going to swim 2.4 miles, right at that, they're like, what, you're crazy. You're insane. Right. How much time you spend training and, constantly do I run into that. Yeah. And even today, even as, I think, exercise and the endurance world has really exploded with whether it's Spartan racing, Tough Mudder, Ironman. I think social media has kind of really put a lot of that out there with the exercise and endurance world out there. I still get people that are like, man, you're crazy. Can't believe you're what is that how much you spend on the weekend? 12 hours training for a race, and why? And the fact that you guys spend money doing it. What it's like $700,000 to do an Ironman.
Right.
You pay to put yourself through that. But yeah, at the end of the day, though, I tell them it's for one thing, it's a discovery about who you are. It allows you to kind of sit there. I think too, is keep yourself sharp. For me, it keeps me on the edge to where, whether it's personal life or work life, I'm striving for something. So I kind of have that goal to keep me focused, keep me moving forward. Looking at ways to improve, looking at ways to keep myself healthy even. Because if you take an example, I mean, Ironman kind of breaks down into a fourth discipline, nutrition. And so, over the years, I had to dig into some of the nutritional issues I had with Ironman, but it made me take a look at my diet and what I'm doing and things like that. And what I come to find even after a couple years of that is how could I be healthier? And so it kind of led to a whole nother journey in just health and longevity. That became a big focus in my life.
So take me back to the moment, the 4 jobs, when you were in that moment, because I think those moments are so pivotal for someone who's developing and wanting to be better. So at that moment, what was your mindset? Because you said you were just like playing basketball and stuff like that at that moment, right? Like
yes, I mean during that time, I was still in school, so I was about ready to graduate. I was in school for those years, but I was living on my own right out of high school and everything. Basically, my dad kind of wanted me to kind of get out in the world and see what it was like, and well, not really see what it was like, but kind of that was his way of kind of coaching me to kind of get adjusted to the next the next phase of my life and everything. So it kind of worked out to where as I'm going through school and everything, I'm working 4 jobs basically just to be able to pay the rent, put food on the table, pay for the education, and such. So yeah, I mean I bartended, was a mechanic at the bowling alley that my dad manages. So that was a cool experience. I enjoyed that. At the same time, delivered pizzas. I worked at FedEx, loading trucks, UPS, and some of those, trying to take care, advantage of some of the, college tuition they had, reimbursement and stuff. Okay. But yes, I mean, there'd be days I'd be going to class, I'd be maybe delivering pizzas in the morning, going to class, and going to FedEx, and I was usually working like the midnight turns and stuff. So, but yeah, it was just kind of a mindset to. I kind of wanted to get through school and, be able to get through it. And just so I had some possibilities. And
So what about those moments? So I think for me, one of the biggest things of my childhood or those developing years when you are making those like kind of sacrifices, especially with sleep, because just think about like you were getting no sleep at that moment. So what is the biggest takeaway from those moments? Because I feel like everything that we do is like it's just a bricks, and you're just stacking on like a lot of the structure of your life. So what do you take away from those moments when you were working 4 jobs, and just think about where you are now? What's the biggest thing that you take, or if there's even one thing that you can think that working those 4 jobs and being in that moment, like how that structured who you are now?
So it sometimes I want to say it comes all full circle. I mean, even from that Ironman, making that decision, I had a dream to do an Ironman, but back then I had a dream that, funny enough, I wanted to be an engineer, but the way I went in is I did my first 2 years of computer engineering, then went into applied mathematics. But this whole entire time I'm working, struggling, just trying to make ends meet. Trying to figure out how to even manage money, because as you come out of high school, it's kind of funny. There's life lessons that you just don't know until you get into those situations. And during that time, I hated my dad for putting me in that situation because I failed. And the thing is I learned coming out of there, accept failure. Failure is actually a good thing because that's where you learn. You learn from all the failures that you have. But the other thing that it is I was a dreamer. But you have to be a doer. But I had a dream and I never gave up on that dream. And the thing is to never give up on that dream. And it comes full circle with the 70.3. I had a dream to do the Ironman, to be able to go further in the sport, and I stuck with it. And that's the thing. Through those years, I stuck with it. I put myself through the hard work. Even though it felt like there was no end in sight, I come full circle to, when I'm 43 this year, I have the dream job that I wanted with ATI. I got that systems engineering job, as a model engineer. So, I was able to finally get a lot of that stuff. I've had, all the success and of being able to finish how many Ironman races and all that. And then even take that to the next step with working with other people on trying to be able to get them to their goals. And so that was probably, I would say, having dreams, always dreaming and still, trying to look at what could I do different, or not even so what could I do different, or what could I do next, but just, if there's a dream that you have, chase after it and don't give up on that. And even though it feels like you have up and down and you'll never get there and it might shift a little bit, just if you stay the course, you'll get there.
Yeah. So, one of the coolest things about being coached by someone who is so seasoned in this sport is seeing how far you can go too, because there's going to be times where I'm training for a race and you're also training for a race. So you're coaching me, you're coaching your wife, you're coaching other athletes. So tell me a little bit about going to a higher level in triathlon, because not only did you reach your dream of doing Ironman, now you're going on to furthering your endurance career with was the nationals.
Yeah. So this is probably the fourth year I've qualified for nationals. So yeah, I mean, one of my goals here right now is to try to actually finish in the top 18 within my age group, to be able to make Team USA from an amateur perspective. Yeah. So which would just allow me to be able to race some of the ITU or international races with the Team USA uniform, being part of that Team USA squad. So that's kind of the next level that I'd like to kind of get to. So that's coming up this year, and that's So I mean, it's trying to take my training to the next level, but trying to juggle, the coaching. I got the business that I started last year with doing the VO2 testing and that, so just trying to get that off to the ground, and then still have the day job and everything. So it's just trying to juggle a little bit of everything with that, and trying to keep what priorities straight.
Right. And that's one thing we talked about is the balance. So off camera, we talked a little bit about the balance. So tell me how you plan on executing some of these things, because like we talked about before, the balance aspect about it, and also now you're going on a higher level. This is going to be like I know how you are with me and your other athletes on just the data points. So so much about you have 10 years plus of data on yourself. So how do you find those little nuances in the data to put yourself on a even higher level than you are now?
Yeah. So I mean, that's what. Yeah. So I'm kind of like a data nerd when it comes to doing a lot of this stuff. But and I love it for the fact that I really love to. I love to understand the physiology of our bodies and stuff. Basically, to allow myself to be able to, whether I'm working with you, whether it's myself, how could we try to maximize our training? Because at the end of the day, with all the juggling of everything, it comes to how do we make sure we get the maximal amount out of each workout. Because I don't want to try to waste any time on not hitting the right zones and things like that. And this way we can structure everything. So that's a lot about how I'm kind of approaching it now. And that's what I use a lot. I have my 10 years of experience, which is great. And there's a lot that I pull from that. But it's all about having those key data points to be able to know where to focus at. And then, I mean, from a time perspective, it's about having the priorities on what you need to focus on and making sure that you hit those, let's say, top 10 things you have to do for that week. Whether it's, the top key workouts that you have to do, right? Because I've talked to you guys a lot, you can always add in more zone 2 training at the end of the day. But if you get the key stuff in and can't fit the other, the other 20% in, that's fine. It's just making sure focusing on those top priorities.
Right. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be it's going to be fun for me to see that like my coach crushing it, and also we have a race coming up, and you're going to be doing it as well. So that's going to be cool as well to see you doing that. Talk to so educate the people on the Pinot test. Am I saying it right? The Pinot test, and then the zone 2 training. Let's start off with the Pinot test. What are you trying to find in the Pinot test?
So with the Pinot test that we do, right? So it's a lot of people call it Pinot is the maker of the equipment and the platform. The testing is a VO2 test, VO2 max testing. A lot of people refer to, or also known as like active metabolic rate test, so AMR test. And so what we're trying to do with this test is we're not just simply trying to figure out what is your VO2 max, okay? And that's basically the maximum amount of oxygen that you could move with one breath. And that's a great number out there is, hey, here's how good you are. How do you compare to other people? What we're trying to really dive deeper into is what is your physiology? Because everybody is very unique and different. And so everyone's physiology is slightly different than the other. So whether you look at like your heart rate zones, and then your energy systems, at what time does your energy systems respond, at what heart rate, those change, and they're very unique person to person. And so that's what we're trying to really find out with the Pinot.
One of the biggest things that I love about doing this podcast is I get to find what motivates people. So I'm a big person. I love books. I love books that motivate me. One of my favorite books was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that really got me into reading. But I've noticed that like there's a lot of books, like David Goggins put out a book that's like motivational and stuff like that. So it can be a book or even like a documentary or like a song.
I don't even listen to the lyrics even. It's the, like you heard the like the rhythm of it and everything and the beat of the music and all that. So like if I find something like that just triggers, it just triggers like an emotional response for me. Okay. And so like that might be a song that I listen to that just kind of gets me really like hyped up. Okay. But it changes, like after a while that'll get old, right? Because I've listened to it a couple of times, so it'll go through like a month. Then I'll find something else. It could even be like a Tay Swift song that I just like the beat of it. Okay. And so it's things like that, but it's whatever. And so there's not really one song or one thing consistently. It's whatever kind of I find that sparks some kind of emotional response. Okay. And so like that song I heard, and I can't remember where I heard it from. It maybe was a YouTube video that I happened to come across, and I heard it, and then and I was like, oh man, this is like it got me hyped up, and so then I looked for that song and I found it on that SoundCloud. I didn't even have SoundCloud, so I found it on there so I could play it while I'm trying to train or whatever. And those are the type of things that kind of trigger that emotional response for me that allows me to it kind of gives me that feeling of like digging in, and just that passion. And it just really elicits that type of response for me. I really don't have a specific. It's almost like in that time period, I find something that just is able to trigger that emotion or that.
Wow. Okay. That's unique. That's definitely unique because it's not something like for example, I'll always go back and watch before a marathon. I'll always go back and watch the Barclays, the guy that tried the Barclay Marathon and he failed like two times at it, and it always gets that emotion in me because it's like you watch how strenuous he was and how hard he tried and it still didn't work out, and it kind of brings that emotion where it's like, man, you could do this and fail, but if you do it and you succeed, that's where the glory is. So it's like that always invokes that emotion. But that's good. I like that. I like that because it's like you it's not a routine. Like
yeah. No, it's kind of whatever it's whatever I could kind of latch onto in that moment that allows me to try to trigger something to kind of push forward, and a lot of time I guess whether I'm searching for that song or for that beat, it's kind of like, kind of maybe goes back to like I have this vision. It's even like with the upcoming races here. I'm trying right now to figure out how do I get that passion back in, because we're going to be racing together. Yeah. So part of me is like, wow, I can't just show up at Happy Valley here and have like a half-ass performance. So like, part of that's like, wow, I'm going to be racing with Darnell here. I'm going to be racing with, my other victory teammates. Yeah. Man, I got to really ramp it up so we could like just crush it out there. Yeah. And so it's some stuff like that kind of like, for right now, that's what's kind of triggering me for Happy Valley right now. The fact that we're going to be out there racing. And
yeah. Oh,
so it's...
That will be amazing. Okay, so for anyone who is looking into getting into the endurance sports, triathlon, even if they're looking to do their first sprint, or even if they're looking to do their first 5K, what is some advice that you can give to that person that's scared, that's just like, I want to do this and I know it's going to change my life, but I'm scared to do it?
I mean, first if that's something that you want to do and that you're scared to do it, or it's like it feels like it's impossible to do, you have to have that mindset, and I think you have to go for it. But it's I think it helps to try to find like like a group, like whether it's Victory, whether it's some other running group, whether it's a friend, a coworker. And being able to sit there and work out with somebody to be able to kind of keep you motivated, to kind of help you out, that's definitely, I think, something I would try to look for. The other thing is a little bit of research on what do you need to do, whether that's doing your own research, whether that's trying to hook up with like a coach or trying to hook up with some team. But yeah, that's probably the main thing. But yeah, definitely start out small. Take baby steps into it. Start off with trying to run a half a mile. I go back to whenever I was at 84 and I couldn't run a mile, and I was born with back problems and stuff. Yeah. But I took it where I was running quarter miles on a treadmill, and then I would stop and take a break and run another quarter, and I would do that and hit a mile. And that was my mile, and I would keep on taking baby steps until I got there. And it's kind of how you have to approach it. Right. It's taking some of those baby steps, building on each other, and then eventually you're able to string the whole mile together. Yeah. And then you have to look at that as a milestone. So if you're starting out, take those small little steps, accomplish that, hit that small first goal. But celebrate that first goal, because that's huge. And it doesn't have to be, hey, I want to run a marathon, so I'm not going to be happy until I hit that marathon. Man, when you hit that first mile and you could actually run a mile, that is awesome. Yeah. That's kind of how the way you have to break it down and look at it is you have to have a lot of small achievements along the way to that bigger dream or that bigger achievement.
Yes, I agree. Celebrate them small wins. So tell anybody. So you do have a business that does the test that you took me through the VO2 max test. So how do people find you?
Yeah, so I do have a web page that I'm kind of getting started out there. But obviously I'll probably give you my my email information. So I do have a business called Victory Athletic Performance Solutions, to where for right now we're doing the VO2 testing. Maybe eventually we're doing training using hypoxic, so basically doing elevation training. Potentially even growing it to be able to work with athletes on being able to do just different other type of trainings, whether that's with some different breathing tools that I have. But yeah, so but basically it's shoot me an email, webpage coming soon. But yeah, information I'll definitely provide.
So if there's someone out there looking to get this test, how do they find you?
So J.Nellie _triathlete is my Instagram.
Okay.
And then, I'll post my webpage is victoryathleticperformancesolutions.com.
Okay. And I'll also put everything in the show notes as well. So all you got to do is go into the link below this page, and you'll be able to find out where to find my coach J.Nellie and the mad scientist. So anytime you want to if you want to take your fitness to the next level, come find this man, and he will definitely help you out with that, as well as bringing that community. Shout out to Victory Multisport, which is the group that we roll with. Multisport has been a big contributor in my growth in this sport. So of course, check them out, check their Instagram out as well. And this has been great, Coach. I think we've been talking about doing this for a little while, so I'm really happy that we finally got this done. And guys, I know this is going to be a treat for you guys too. So thank you for being on the show, Coach.
Yeah, no, appreciate having me. This has been an awesome time here.
Definitely.
Chatting it up.
Definitely. Well, see you guys next time. Peace.